the Panama Papers, news that's breaking over the weekend. Major, I would say, game-changing data released. 2.6 terabytes of information from a financial records from a law firm in Panama. We'll discuss that in chunks. There's no way in the world we can cover anything to do it any service tonight. So we're going to do bits and pieces as more information comes out. So let's go to the Panama Papers. That's a big chunk. All right. So there's a law firm inside of Panama, and I'm not going to pronounce this right, so just forget about it. I'm gonna use my American accent, my Southern American accent. Mossack Fonesca is the name of the firm. Just a little bit of background on the firm itself. The firm was founded in 1986 by two partners. It was established in 1977. And in 86, they became Mossack Fonesca. It's a global company that provides comprehensive legal aid, trust, and wealth management services. And it incorporates. It is a full service firm for the rich and the famous and the political elite, which is the most interesting thing about this. Earlier last year, over 2.6 terabytes of data was released anonymously to, essentially, it was the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. They got a hold of this data. 2.6 millions of documents, far more than the 250,000 documents released by WikiLeaks. These millions of documents were then sorted by over 300 different agencies, journalists and agencies. And today was the day that they released the very first portion of their findings. Today's portion of their findings seems to have targeted non-American transgressions. Let's just say it like that. Today did not focus on America. Today was international. And you get to see how the rich and the famous really hide their wealth, not only legitimate wealth that they created through their businesses, but also wealth that was obtained illegally. There's mentions of drug cartel wealth in there, illegal funding, corporations that are still funding tax in Syria. The most interesting, one of the biggest stories that jumped out for me was millions of dollars in gold that was stolen in 1983. And you wonder where people actually take money from major heists like this. According to the Panama Papers, this corporation, this law firm, Mossack, I can't even say it right. Let me use the Mossack Fonesca, actually helped launder that money and create a shell corporation to give the people who participated in that that crime access to their wealth, to their newfound wealth. So it's really a who's who of stars, sports figures, politicians, dictators, and criminals, all participating or all getting services from this one company, this one firm out of Panama. And someone anonymously leaked 2.6 terabytes. I don't know what they have left, right? If they got that much information, I don't know what they would have left. All right, so some of the findings today implicated Russian President Vladimir Putin. It has a trail of $2 billion in suspicious dealings from his best friend, Sergei Roldygin, who is a professional cellist. But it's so close to the Kremlin that the Kremlin has spun this to say that this is all American propaganda. And this is what a phrase that I never heard until today, Putin phobia, that's being spewed by America. Lionel Messi, considered to be the world's best soccer player, has shell companies that were managed by Mossack Fonesca. There's a law firm, Pedro Damani, the law firm of Juan Pedro Damani, actually is a member of FIFA. They are implicated in this. Iceland's prime minister has been called, he's been implicated. He was a part of an interview today, and he walked off the set when he was asked about this. Iceland is demanding, or a large portion of the electorate there is demanding, that he resign. So there's a lot of fallout. The besides the criminal element of some of Mossack Fonseca's clients, you have people who made their wealth legally and just use their services to for tax evasion. The standard play by the wealthy, the rich, and the famous. People who don't want to pay taxes, they create shell corporations, and this firm seems to be the granddaddy of them all. Just for the last 40 years, they have been helping the rich and famous and the criminal not only evade taxes, but also launder their money. And so members of parliament, it's gotten close to David Cameron. David Cameron himself has not been implicated, but it's gotten that close. There is the premier of, not the premier, but the prime minister of China. And I don't want to say this one wrong, but I don't have it in front of me. I believe it's either his daughter-in-law. There's somebody, a relative very close to the prime minister of China, who's also implicated in this. In terms of stars, I was surprised Jackie Chan has a shell corporation, according to the papers that have been released. This really just crosses the gambit of professions, of leaders, from not only from dictatorial regimes, authoritarian regimes, but there's 140 politicians implicated in this. And so far today, only a handful have been mentioned, which begs the question, where will the lion's share of politicians be implicated as they're slow rolling this information out? Most everything that came out today was international. Very few things fell on America today. That information will start, I would guess, sometime this week, if not tomorrow, that will roll out. So there's a big question mark around who is going to be implicated in this. It was interesting. There is a question of censorship that's involved with this, because in China, of course, the authoritarian regime that they have opted to just completely black out any searches for this. Right. They become proficient at stopping people from searching and finding certain things. So China's solution was to just completely censor it. Russia's solution was to blame it on the US, which really rallies his support group and actually makes him stronger. So Vladimir Putin understands the right play over there. In the UK, they focused on everyone else externally, everyone else internationally, with very little mention in the coverage from the BBC, very little mention in terms of the people implicated in the UK. Iceland might be one of the few people, the prime minister of Iceland might be one of the few people who are being held accountable today. I was watching a live stream by the economist in Bremer, and he was just comparing it in terms of the scope and the gravity of the situation. And he gave a basic recounting of everything that happened, compared it to WikiLeaks, 250,000 documents, and this was like millions of documents. But he also put it into context. He said that it's very possible that some people will be killed over this. The person who leaked it obviously has been completely anonymous, and no one knows who it is. So hopefully for him, he or she, it remains that way. But in terms of the relationships and the dealings and the paper trail, the transparency, it's a forced transparency, I think, is the biggest takeaway from this, is that there's this idea that there's a level of confidentiality, but it really just does not exist anymore, because something like this can happen and completely expose your dealings. And so with this level of transparency, you have the ability, like, it's not just journalists who are viewing this information. You have other people who are viewing this information. And according to Bremer, he thinks that there's a good chance that they will be able to identify misdealings between criminals and between nations and between organizations, which will ultimately probably lead to the death of some people. So this is a major issue that is just beginning. This could last for a very long time. You probably will see people discussing this at least the next 5 to 10 years. In terms of the immediate ramifications, I was reading some newspapers today, and I didn't see any coverage in the newspapers. Like quite literally, there no coverage in. Of course, the Boston Globe is not going to cover it. The New York Times did not cover it. The Wall Street Journal did not cover it. And I saw online the only place in America, the only paper in America that covered it was the USA Today. USA Today was the only paper out of a major paper in the United States that covered the Panama Papers. This forced transparency is going to it's going to force everyone to address this and cover this, and it's also going to bring all I can say is let's see what tomorrow brings and see what happens to American politicians, American businessmen, and American sports icons. Anyone who has a shell corporation that was set up by Mossack Fonesca. I don't know if that's Fonseca, whatever. I'll get the pronunciation tomorrow. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see how many Americans are implicated in this. Who is this? I think it was France. France, the prime minister of France, or the president of France, rather, he said that he's elated about this because these documents, these financial documents, are going to allow their tax authority to collect revenues that have been hidden for years. I think that's just the least of the ramifications. No, let me say that again. Let me say that differently. If the only ramifications of businesses, political and economic elite, if their only ramifications that they have to go back and pay taxes after years and years of tax evasion, then we have a bigger problem than the tax evasion itself. And it becomes an institutional problem. Which brings me to the very next thing I want to talk about, which is Barney Frank. I want to talk about Barney Frank